Hey guys, Sam7 here today, bringing a little ground war gameplay using the P90 in this gameplay. This is from last night, probably one of the, if not, yeah, probably the best P90 game that I had. That's why I picked it out. I think I ended up maxing out the P90 before I finished this sesh, but did not have it maxed out here in this video. But even then, it's still a beast. P90, very fun gun to use. It sort of falls in the good but not great category. I think it's probably, if I were to do like a tier list of the weapons in the game, the P90, I'd probably put it somewhere in the A or B tier. Definitely a solid gun, fun to use, but not quite as good as like the top guns in the game, I would say. So that's something you just have to know going into using the P90. You have to know that like MP5s, MP7s, M4s, PKM, the 725 shotgun, stuff like that, you're just gonna get outmatched. But against like any other weapon, or if you're catching people off guard, stuff like that, if you're playing smart, it's still a very competent gun. I think its biggest weakness is the fact that it is pretty weak, which is unfortunate, because if this thing was just a little bit stronger, it would be so good. I honestly don't even know if it would be overpowered. I think it'd be just like a little bit better. But yeah, it definitely does not have the hardest recoil to control, and it can beam at range because of that. But the damage just kind of holds it back a little bit. Just kind of holds it back. But that's not the main topic of this video. I wanted to talk about competitive for Modern Warfare a little bit, because if you've been following the channel or watching the streams, whatever, I'm a pretty big fan of COD competitive ever since I started to get into it around like midway through Ghosts, and then at that point I just got super into it. I went back and I watched like all the Black Ops 2 tournaments and all the Ghost tournaments that I missed, and have pretty much watched I don't know, I'd say like maybe 90-80% of the tournaments since Advanced Warfare. Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 4 were the 2 years where I was into it the most, though. I watched every tournament those years, and then for the other years I watched most of them. I mean, there were some where I definitely fell off a little bit. Interest just died down a little bit, but been keeping up with it for the most part. And I think it's pretty fun to watch. I think COD's a pretty fun game to play, and it's fun to watch competitively. I've always enjoyed the competitive aspect of it. But with this game, we're in kind of a weird time for it right now. This is a weird period for competitive COD in general, and especially for this game, because if you haven't heard, it's going to be done a bit like Overwatch this year. It's pretty much going to be completely different. So like the established way that competitive COD has been ran for the past however many years, it's been pretty consistent since like Ghosts, or like AW, with the leagues that they would have, the seasons that they would have, and the tournaments, and some tourney hosts would have like their little tournaments here and there, and then of course there'd be big COD champs every year, some big MLG tournaments and stuff like that, and it's been pretty consistent with how it's been ran. But this year it's going to be a lot different, now that franchising is a thing, and they're trying to make it more professional, I guess is the word I could use. And I'm very curious to see how it goes, because to be honest, I had like a very small interest in Overwatch for a little bit, but I really did not get that into it, so I don't really have that much experience with how it's worked out in Overwatch. I just did not pay that much attention to it. It seems to work for Overwatch. I mean, I feel like Overwatch is doing just fine, and it's been doing fine competitively and just like in general with the game. So like from an outsider, from a noob perspective, it seems that it's doing just fine with Overwatch. How is it going to go down in COD? I don't know. I'm really curious to see. There's a lot of question marks to it, and there's definitely like positives and negatives. I think probably the biggest negative for me is, I don't know, man. I really liked the tournament format that we've used so far for competitive Call of Duty. I mean, obviously it all culminates with COD champs, and that's where it's like the most fun. But in general, I really like the tournament format that's been used in Call of Duty in the past, and I liked that there would be like a little league going on, and you'd have your season matches. But really, like, the tournaments are what was big, and obviously COD champs was the biggest one. But in general, obviously you want to win every tournament, and it was always something that just like, it just made every tournament weekend was just so exciting. It just always felt like a special event, even if it wasn't COD champs, even if it was a smaller tournament. I'd always want to catch most of the action if I could, and especially of course Sunday with the final matches. You always want to catch most of Sunday if you can, but I'm a bigger fan of it, so I would still, like, even Friday and Saturday, I'd try to watch all the matches and watch as many as I could, and it was just really fun. I guess the it's not the best comparison, but I think like the best thing I could maybe compare it to. I was just trying to think of like a sport comparison, and honestly, again, it's not great. There's probably like a golf analogy or something like that. I don't really watch golf, but there's probably like a golf analogy that's better, or for some other sport. But the best comparison I could use, honestly, is for like NASCAR or racing. How I'll use NASCAR as an example, right? Like even people that don't watch NASCAR, and I don't anymore either. But even for people that don't watch it, I think most people are aware that it's like, okay, yeah, the Daytona 500, like that's a big event, right? Like there's other races that are pretty big, like Talladega is another one that gets hyped up a lot. Bristol's another one that gets hyped up a lot. But I think most people know, like most casual people know that that's like a big event. But they have a lot of races in the season, right? There's a lot of races in the season. There's a lot of other different tracks. But those are more like for the hardcore fans that pay attention to those. But I think there are a lot of people that aren't like hardcore NASCAR fans that'll still show up and they'll still watch, like the Daytona 500 and stuff like that. That's kind of how I felt with the tournaments in COD the way it's been ran previously. Is that like COD Champs was like the Daytona 500 of COD tournaments, right? Like even casual fans would come up and watch COD Champs, and then there were the little tournaments that weren't advertised as much, aren't as big, don't have as much money behind them, and like the hardcore people would still really enjoy those tournaments, but it was more so the hardcore people, right? Like it wouldn't get as much turnout there. That's kind of how it was in the past. With the way it's going to be now, I'm kind of excited about it because there are some teams that are located like pretty close to where I live, and it gives me, if there's going to be like tournaments held in their area, that gives me a better chance, like personally, of being able to go to a tournament, because it's something that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to go to a COD tournament. I always thought it'd be dope. I just haven't been able to do it because I live in Wisconsin, and the closest tournament is probably like Columbus. There usually be like a tournament in Columbus, Ohio. That's probably like the closest one, but it's still like not that close. So it just wasn't really, I just didn't really have like the best opportunity to show up to one. But now that there's like a Chicago team and a Minnesota team, it's like, well, you know what? This is kind of like, this is only a state away. Like this could actually go down. Actually show up to a tournament. And it's good that it'll be a little more spread out, because that's kind of an issue for me from a spectator standpoint with the way it was with the tourneys, is that like they would always be in certain like high traffic areas, you know what I mean? Like there'd be tournaments in Florida, like in Miami. There'd always be tournaments like Los Angeles, Columbus, Ohio. I already mentioned that one. But it kind of sucked for people that lived really far away, you know what I mean? Like the traveling aspect. Whereas like from a spectator standpoint, if you live really close to one of the teams, it might work out a little bit better for you. Maybe you have that opportunity like I do to actually like go to one now and not being that far away. At the same time, though, it doesn't work out perfectly. It's not like the NBA or NFL or something like that, where the teams for the most part are pretty well spread out, and you can have a team that's fairly close to you, maybe like a state away in pretty much any area. As far as I'm aware, I don't even like, aside from I think there is the New York team, but other than that, like the rest of the New England area is just like completely cheesed for a team, which is kind of weird. Because you'd think that they would have like maybe a decent amount of teams there, but there's two LA teams, but you just got New York and like the whole New England area of the US, which is kind of, I don't know, kind of interesting. I kind of thought that it would be like spread out a little bit more, or I don't know, I guess I'm just surprised that another like city in that area did not get picked up for a team. It's kind of weird to me. But yeah, like that aspect of it, I think is cool. I think it's cool that hopefully, in theory, maybe it'll be a little bit easier for people to go to events now and stuff like that, and get to experience it. Now that it'll be a little more spread out, hopefully. As for like the way that it's going to be held with the league this year and how it's going to go, I don't know, man. Like, the Black Ops 4 league lasted the entire season. And as far as I'm aware, I think that's what they're doing here. I think they're going to have a league that like spans out the entire season, and then they'll have like, like a season tournament or something like that. That's going to be basically like the COD Champs. And I don't know if this is true, but I think what I've heard is that it would be like the final tournament would be like a super invitational type thing, like only like top 4 teams from the league and stuff like that. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I definitely think, at least from a spectator standpoint, maybe like from a competitive standpoint, that might be better. But from a spectator standpoint, COD Champs, man, like just having those top 32 teams, having the qualifiers for it, having having all that hype going into it was just so much fun consistently. And from a competitive aspect, it was still viable. Like, the league definitely still helped out. You do well in the league, you're going to qualify for COD Champs just easy, and you get that seeding, you get a much better bracket spot. Like, look at last year, Optic and E United, which Optic only finished third, but E United ended up winning the whole tournament, had very, very, very easy brackets from doing well in the league, whereas other teams that were good at tournaments, but maybe not as consistent in the league, really got shafted with their brackets and got punished for it. So I just kind of liked how you could, despite not doing well in the league, you could still perform, show up to COD Champs, still make it, still perform. But if you took the league seriously, it would still give those teams a much better chance. You know what I mean? Like, now I feel like there might be almost too much emphasis put on like the league aspect and trying to make it like an actual sport, or like a conventional sport, I should say, like the NBA and stuff like that, with how they'll do the regular season, the playoffs and stuff like that. I don't know if that, I guess, like, the discussion that I really want to spark from this video, I don't know if that system just like works as well for COD, and well, for esports in general, but particularly for COD. I just don't know if that system works as well. I don't know if like that regular season playoff system is as exciting as like the spread out tournaments that we've had from the past, and like the league seasons that don't last as long. Like, for example, Black Ops 3 AW, I'm pretty sure there was 2 or 3 league seasons in a year, as opposed to like Black Ops 4, and this year apparently, like I said, they're only doing the one throughout the whole thing, and that might get a little bit tiring. I would argue that even like for average sports fans, probably say it about the NBA. Well, maybe not the NFL season. I feel like the NFL season's pretty short, but maybe like the NBA season, I feel like regular sport fans already feel that way to a certain extent. It's like, yeah, the regular season, like, I'm just, not even going to watch those games. I'll just wait for the playoffs. And, maybe we're going to have that with COD now. Like, with the tournaments, most people would show up and watch the tournaments because they knew that was like the big thing. But even with Black Ops 4, you've already had that, where people don't really watch the league matches because it's the same sort of thing. It's like, why would I watch the league matches? It's just for seeding, really. At the end of the day, I might as well just watch the tournament when it pops up. And just because of that, viewership wise, I just don't know. It seems like they want to put more emphasis on the league and make the league matter more. And I'm definitely down with making, I didn't even see that guy proning initially. I'm definitely down with making the league matter more. I just don't know if it's going to work. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, it's still going to come down to that tournament. It's still going to be like that playoff type thing, and I don't know if it's going to work. And I just think the tournament format's just so much more exciting. I really do. I think it's a lot more fun, and a lot more fun from a spectator standpoint. And honestly, like, from my days of like AW or I tried to get into competitive COD a lot, played a lot of online tournaments, and I thought the tournaments were very, very fun. And even with my teams, we tried to get into some online leagues as well, and those were a lot more, there's a lot of different aspects to why those didn't work out, but those were just a lot more annoying, and I just did not enjoy those as much. Whereas, like, doing the tournaments with my team, I think everybody on the teams that I was on thought that was like the most fun, because it was like, we do our regular matches, we get our practice in throughout the day, and then it's like, all right, here's a tournament, like, we're gonna make our practice show here, and putting more at stake on it as well. It was just a lot more fun. And just the feeling too, especially like with the losers bracket system, if you ever made like a losers bracket run through a tournament or something like that, that's always like really exciting. And really fair too, for the most part. I think the only issue that I have with the tournament system is that I don't like, group play gets kind of cheesy. Like, I like the idea of group play, but it gets kind of cheesy sometimes, and sometimes like groups are just like way harder than other groups, and it fucks up the bracket, and it's just kind of, I don't know, it doesn't work out that well practically all the time. But the other thing too is, I'm getting like kind of nerdy with it now, but in Halo tournaments, like in Halo 2, and I think Halo 3, at least for a while, had this as well. The way it would work, like for grand finals and stuff like that, like if you had a team fight their way from the losers bracket, face against the other team in the grand finals, it would be a continuation series. So like, let's say that two teams faced each other earlier in the tournament. The one team won 3-2, won the best of 5 3-2, and then that team ends up just dominating the winners bracket, makes it to finals. The other team ends up dominating the losers bracket, makes it back for the grand finals rematch. The way they would do it is they would do a best of 11 continuation. So the series would start 3-2 with that team that won earlier with the advantage, obviously, and it would go to best of 11. So whoever would get to 6 first, whoever would win like the 6th game, or get 6 wins in the series first. Whereas with COD, I think they did do that. I'm pretty sure they did do that with COD even for a little bit, like for Black Ops 2 and stuff like that. But at a certain point, they switched it to 2 best of 5s, which I don't like that as much. I do not like the 2 best of 5 system. I think the continuation series, to me, just makes a lot more sense. And I just love a good best of 11, to be honest with you. Like I love those long-ass, drawn-out series between the 2 best teams. Like it's the 2 best teams. I want to see them. I want to see them make all those games, And with the continuation series, sometimes it could get really intense. And I think that like a best of 11 S&D was a lot more exciting than like this team won the first best of 5. Now we're on the second best of 5 here, and they're going for the 3-0. I don't know. I thought it was more exciting. It was more exciting to me. But I'm getting like kind of nitpicky here at the end. I don't know. This video was very rambly, and that's just the way it was. I just wanted to get those thoughts out there, and I'm curious to see anybody else thinks on how comp is going to go this year. I very clearly stated, I think, through all the rambling throughout this video, I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know if it's going to be more enjoyable to watch or to play, but we'll see. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and see you next time.